On a Saturday afternoon in June of 1989, at the Douglas County Equipment Auction in Omaha, Nebraska, Tom Ricketts made what everyone agreed was the stupidest purchase of the day. He paid $300 for a 1954 Chevrolet 3100 pickup that hadn't run in 18 years. The truck sat at the back of the auction lot, separated from the decent vehicles like a patient nobody wanted to treat. The paint had faded from Chevy blue to something closer to primer gray. Both tires on the driver's side were flat. The passenger door hung slightly open, held by one hinge. Birds had built nests in the cab. Someone had written "Runs" on the dusty windshield, and the 3 question marks told you everything you needed to know. The auctioneer almost skipped it entirely. "All right, folks, we're coming to the end here. 1954 Chevy pickup, part of the Hollenbeck estate. Hasn't run since. Looks like 1971 based on the expired plates. Sold as is, no guarantee, probably better for parts than anything else. Do I hear $100? Silence. Come on, somebody needs a project truck. $50? More silence, a few chuckles from the crowd. $25 for a genuine piece of Americana? Tom raised his hand. 100. The auctioneer looked surprised. I have 100. Do I hear 150? Nothing. 100 going once. 200. Tom's voice again. Now people were turning to look. The man was bidding against himself for a truck that hadn't run since Nixon was president. Sir, you don't need to bid against yourself. 300. The laughter started, not polite chuckling. Real laughter, the kind that carries across an auction yard and makes other people stop and look. Sold, the auctioneer said quickly, before Tom could raise it to 400. To the gentleman in the back for $300. Tom walked to the payment table and counted out 15 $20 bills, most of what he had in his checking account. He signed the title transfer and took his receipt. That's when Dale Sherman found him. Dale was 38 years old, owner of Sherman Ford in Omaha, the biggest truck dealership in Douglas County. He wore pressed khakis, a polo shirt with the dealership logo, and a gold watch that caught the sun. He drove a new 1989 F-150 XLT Lariat that he replaced every year, and he had opinions about everything, especially old trucks. Tom Ricketts, Dale said, loud enough for the people around them to hear. Did you just spend $300 on that pile of rust? I did. Do you know what $300 could buy you at my dealership? Tom said nothing. That's a down payment on a real truck, a 1989 F-150, fuel injection, air conditioning, power everything, something that actually runs. I can fix this one, Dale laughed. The same big carrying laugh that everyone at the auction had heard. Tom, that truck hasn't run in 18 years. The engine's probably seized, the wiring's shot, the frame's probably rotted through. You just paid $300 for something that's worth maybe $50 in scrap metal. Maybe. There's no maybe about it. I've been selling trucks for 15 years. I know what I'm talking about. Dale stepped closer, putting his hand on Tom's shoulder in a gesture that was meant to be friendly but felt condescending. Listen, you're a good guy, hard worker. But this is bad decision-making. Come by the dealership Monday. I'll get you into something that won't embarrass you. Tom looked at Dale's hand on his shoulder, then at Dale's face, then at the 1954 Chevy sitting in the back of the lot. I appreciate the advice, Tom said quietly, but I'm keeping the truck. Dale shook his head, still smiling. Your funeral, buddy. Just remember I tried to help you. He walked back to his F-150, climbed in, and drove away with the air conditioning running and the stereo playing. Tom stood there for a moment, then walked over to his purchase. He'd have to tow it home. The truck couldn't roll on 2 flat tires and probably couldn't be started, even if the tires worked. But Tom Ricketts was 41 years old, a machinist at Omaha Steel Works for 19 years, and he'd learned 2 things from his father: how to fix machines and how to ignore people who said something couldn't be done. Let me tell you about Tom Ricketts, because understanding the man is the only way to understand what happened over the next 18 years. Tom grew up in Council Bluffs, Iowa, just across the Missouri River from Omaha. His father, Donald Ricketts, had been a maintenance mechanic at the Swift and Company meatpacking plant for 32 years. Donald believed in three things: honest work, reliable tools, and fixing what you had instead of buying what you wanted. Tom learned to work on engines in his father's garage. By 15, he could rebuild a carburetor. By 17, he could diagnose engine problems by sound. By 19, he'd rebuilt his first transmission. When Donald died in 1978, he left Tom the garage, the tools, and a 1947 Dodge pickup that Donald had maintained for 30 years. Tom still drove that Dodge in 1989. It had 340,000 miles on it and ran perfectly. So when Tom saw the 1954 Chevy at the auction, he didn't see junk. He saw a truck that was built the same year he was born, a truck with the same inline-six engine his father had taught him to rebuild, a truck that just needed someone to believe in it. The first week, Tom towed the Chevy home and assessed the damage. It was extensive, but not hopeless. The 235 cubic inch inline-six was indeed seized. The wiring harness was brittle and cracked. The brake lines were rusted through. The bed had holes. The cab floor was soft in two places, but the frame was solid. The body, despite the faded paint, had only surface rust. The glass was intact. Someone had taken care of this truck once, and it showed in the bones. Tom started with the engine. He pulled it in July 1989 and completely disassembled it on his garage floor. Every piece was labeled, every measurement recorded. The cylinders were scored but could be bored over size. The crankshaft had surface rust but no deep pitting. The block itself was salvageable. Over the next year, working evenings and weekends, Tom rebuilt that engine. He did the machine work himself at the steel plant after hours with his supervisor's permission. Bored the cylinders, ground the crank, replaced every seal, every gasket, every bearing. By June 1990, 1 year after the auction, the engine was back in the truck. Tom turned the key and the inline-six fired on the third try. It ran rough at first, then smoothed out as oil circulated and parts found their tolerances. Tom sat in the driver's seat listening to that engine, and for the first time in a year, he smiled. Dale Sherman drove past Tom's house one Saturday that summer, saw the Chevy in the driveway with the hood up, stopped and rolled down his window. "Still working on that anchor, Tom?" "Runs now." "For how long?" Dale laughed. "Come on, man. How much have you spent? 1,000? 1,500? You could have bought a decent used truck for that." Tom didn't answer. He just went back to adjusting the carburetor. Over the next 2 years, Tom restored the rest of the truck. New wiring harness, new brake system, new fuel system. He didn't rush, didn't cut corners, did everything right. By 1992, the Chevy was his daily driver. He drove it to work, drove it to the hardware store, drove it to the Runza for lunch. It wasn't show quality. The paint was still faded, the bed still had dings, but it ran perfectly and never left him stranded. People in Omaha got used to seeing Tom in the old Chevy. Some admired it. Some thought he was crazy for not buying something newer. Dale Sherman, whenever he saw Tom around town, always had a comment. "Still driving that museum piece? How's that 54 treating you? Ready for a real truck yet?" "Tom, I've got a 1992 F-150 on the lot. 0% financing. You could have air conditioning." Tom's answer was always the same. "Truck runs fine." And it did. Month after month, year after year. The inline-six engine was simple, reliable, easy to maintain. Tom changed the oil every 3,000 miles, adjusted the valves once a year, replaced wear items as needed. The truck just kept running. By 2000, Tom had owned the Chevy for 11 years. He'd spent roughly $4,200 in parts and materials. The truck had cost him $4,500 total over 11 years. No payments, no interest, no dealer fees. In that same period, Dale Sherman had sold hundreds of new F-150s on 7-year financing plans to people who thought they were buying success, but were really buying debt. By 2007, Tom had owned the 1954 Chevy for 18 years. It was part of his life. The truck he drove to work. The truck he used for errands. The truck that had never failed him. That spring, Tom noticed something. The bed was sitting slightly higher on one side than the other. Not much, maybe half an inch, but noticeable if you looked. He checked the bed mounts. They seemed fine. Checked the frame. No sagging. But when he measured carefully, he found something odd. The bed sat about 2 inches higher off the frame than it should have. In May 2007, Tom decided to replace the bed floor. The wood had rotted in places over 18 years of use, and he wanted to install new oak planks. He removed the old wood and was measuring for the new pieces when he noticed something strange. The bed's inner dimensions didn't match the outer dimensions. The bed was 98 inches long outside, but inside, from the front wall to the tailgate, it measured only 94 inches. 4 inches of space was missing. Tom looked closer. The front bed wall, the panel that sat against the back of the cab, looked thicker than it should be. He tapped it with his knuckles, hollow on the cab side, solid on the bedside. Someone had welded a false wall inside the bed, creating a hidden compartment 4 inches deep and running the full width of the truck. Tom's heart started pounding. He got his angle grinder and carefully cut through the welds at the bottom edge of the false wall. The panel came free, and behind it, wrapped in heavy canvas and sealed in a rubberized tarp, was a metal box. Tom pulled the box out, set it on his garage floor, and opened it. Inside was money. Old bills, nothing newer than 1969. 20s, 50s, hundreds. Tom counted it 3 times, $8,400. Under the money was a manila envelope. Inside the envelope was a land deed for 80 acres in Scottsbluff County, western Nebraska, dated 1968 but never recorded or transferred. And under the deed was a letter, handwritten on lined paper, dated November 1971. Tom sat down on his garage floor and read it. My name is Robert Hollenbeck. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead, and you found what I hid. I saved this money working pipeline jobs from 1952 to 1968. 16 years of overtime, double shifts, working holidays. Never told my wife because she'd have wanted a new house, new furniture, things I thought we didn't need. I was saving it to buy land out west. Found 80 acres in Scottsbluff in 1968. Beautiful country. Thought I'd retire there, build a small cabin, fish in the North Platte River. Bought the land cash but never told anyone. Was going to surprise my wife when I retired in 1972. But the doctor says my heart's giving out. Probably won't make it to retirement. Maybe not even to next spring. The money's clean. Earned it honest. The land's paid for. Deeds legal. I just ran out of time to use it. If you found this, the truck served you well. That Chevy never let me down. Figured whoever cared enough to fix it and keep it deserved whatever I left behind. The land's good, wide open, quiet, everything I wanted. Tell my wife I'm sorry I kept secrets. Tell her I was trying to give her something better. Robert Hollenbeck, November 1971. Tom read the letter twice. Then he looked up Robert Hollenbeck in the county records. Robert Hollenbeck had died in February 1972, age 59. Heart attack. His widow, Margaret, had sold the truck to an estate liquidator in March 1972. She'd moved to Arizona shortly after and died there in 1984. No children, no living relatives that county records could find. The land in Scottsbluff was still in Robert Hollenbeck's name, never transferred, never developed, sitting in legal limbo for 36 years. Tom sat in his garage with $8,400 in 1960s cash, a land deed, and a letter from a man who died 5 months before the truck was sold. Let me tell you what Tom did next, because it's the measure of who he was. First, he contacted a lawyer, explained the situation. The lawyer researched and found that Margaret Hollenbeck had died without a will, no heirs could be located, and the land had eventually reverted to unclaimed property status. Tom, as the finder of the original deed and current owner of the truck where it was hidden, had a legitimate legal claim. It took 9 months of paperwork, but by February 2008, the 80 acres in Scottsbluff County were legally transferred to Tom Ricketts. The land was appraised at $185,000. Second, Tom researched the cash. The bills were old, but still legal tender. He took them to a currency dealer who confirmed they were genuine and offered $9,200 for the collection value. Tom declined. He had different plans. In March 2008, Tom drove the 1954 Chevy to Scottsbluff, 450 miles west through Nebraska, to see the land Robert Hollenbeck had died before visiting. It was exactly as the letter described: 80 acres of rolling grassland near the North Platte River, wide open, quiet, beautiful. Tom stood there and thought about Robert Hollenbeck working double shifts for 16 years, saving money in secret, buying this land, planning a retirement he never got to see. Tom made a decision. He sold 40 of the 80 acres to a local rancher for $95,000, used that money to pay off his house in Omaha, and put the rest in savings. The other 40 acres he kept. Over the next 2 years, he built a small cabin there, not fancy, just solid, exactly where he thought Robert would have built it. 1 bedroom, a porch facing the river, a workshop for truck projects. Tom retired from the steel plant in 2010 at age 62 and moved to the cabin. He still drives the 1954 Chevy. It has 180,000 miles on the odometer now, runs perfectly, and is worth about $28,000 to collectors who've offered to buy it. Tom always says no. The $8,400 in cash? Tom donated it to the Nebraska Veterans Association. Robert Hollenbeck had been a Navy veteran, Korea, and Tom figured the money should help people who served. Dale Sherman's dealership? It went bankrupt in 2009. Over-leveraged on property and inventory during the recession. Dale lost everything. Last Tom heard, he was working as a sales manager at someone else's dealership in Lincoln. In 2015, Tom was at a car show in Scottsbluff with the Chevy. A woman in her 70s walked up to him. "That's a beautiful truck," she said. "My late husband had one just like it, blue. He loved that truck." Tom looked at her. "What was your husband's name?" "Robert Hollenbeck. He died in 1972. I sold his truck after. I always felt bad about that. He loved it." Tom's heart stopped. "You're Margaret Hollenbeck?" "I was. I'm Margaret Chen now. Remarried in 1985. "Why?" Tom took a breath. "Ma'am, I bought your husband's truck in 1989. This is it, and I found something he left for you." He told her everything: the hidden compartment, the money, the land, the letter. Margaret started crying, not sad crying, something else. "He was saving for retirement," she said. "I knew he was, but I never knew how much or what for. After he died, I thought it was just a dream he had. I didn't know it was real." Tom pulled a folded piece of paper from his wallet, a copy of Robert's letter. "He asked me to tell you he was sorry for keeping secrets and that he was trying to give you something better." Margaret read the letter. She was quiet for a long time. "He did give me something better," she said finally. 43 years of marriage. That was enough." She looked at Tom. "You kept the truck running. You found the land. You built the cabin he wanted. You did what he didn't get to do. I hope that's all right. It's perfect." She smiled. Robert would be happy knowing his truck went to someone who appreciated it, who finished what he started. Tom still lives in the cabin in Scottsbluff. He's 76 now. The 1954 Chevy sits in a small garage next to the house. He drives it to town once a week for supplies, drives it to car shows in the summer, drives it because it still runs and because it represents something more than transportation. Dale Sherman's dealership building is now a tire shop. The big Sherman Ford sign is gone. Dale's new F-150 OS from the 90s are all in junkyards or scrapyards now. None of them made it 30 years, let alone 60. Tom's 1954 Chevy is 70 years old and still running. When people ask Tom about the truck, about finding the money and the land, he tells them Robert Hollenbeck's story, about a man who worked hard, saved in secret, bought a dream he never got to see. The truck didn't just carry a secret, Tom says. It carried a man's hopes, and it waited 36 years to deliver them to someone who'd finished the job. The people who laughed at the auction in 1989 don't laugh anymore. Most of them don't even remember that day. But Tom remembers. He remembers Dale Sherman's condescending smile, the crowd's laughter, the auctioneer's skepticism. And he remembers what his father taught him. The worst investment is the one that needs constant payments. The best investment is the one that pays you back in ways you never expected. Tom paid $300 for a truck everyone called junk, spent 18 years fixing it, driving it, trusting it, found $8,400, 80 acres, and a man's unfinished dream hidden in the frame. Not a bad return on $300. Somewhere in Nebraska, an old Chevy pickup still runs, still carries its story, still proves that the things we mock are often the things that matter most. And every time Tom drives it past a Ford dealership, he thinks about Dale Sherman and smiles, because the truck that was worth $50 in scrap is now worth everything.